welcome to this month's InFocus talk, presented jointly by our own charity, the Rotary Foundation, and our humanitarian service team leads. We're also joined tonight by our endowment and major gift advisors, Mike Hodge and Ian Priestley. Tonight we're looking at why it is so important to support our own charity, why it should be your charity of choice. I'm now pleased to ask Mike Hodge to introduce our speaker for the meeting. Thank you, Mike.
Good evening. It's my great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Espen Malmberg, who's the manager of the Foundation Services in Rotary International Europe Africa office based in Zurich. Espen was born in Oslo, Norway. However, he has lived throughout Europe before attending university in Florida, where he received a bachelor's degree in cultural anthropology. He subsequently studied in the University of Bradford in England, where he received a master's degree in conflict resolution. I would add there, that was before the Bradford Peace Centre was actually started there. Espen joined Rotary in 2004 and began his career working with the Rotary Peace Centres at Rotary International offices in Evanston. In his role in Zurich, he is responsible for overseeing all grant, fund development and recognition related activities in Europe, Africa and the Middle East. Espen collaborates with the Regional Rotary Foundation coordinators and endowed and major gift advisors to increase Rotarian engagement and support for the Foundation. Specifically, Espen works on major gift fundraising in the UK, Scandinavia and Africa. Espen would like to start his presentation with a short video, which I'm now asked to start.
Rotary has never backed away from the hardest challenges because we're committed to a better, more equitable world. This year is no exception. Staying away from people and places we love in order to keep them safe. And despite the challenges, your generosity continued. Your donations provided more than $7 million to fund coronavirus relief projects in communities worldwide. And thanks to you, citizens of Kigali, Rwanda have their first public library. Women in rural Costa Rica are enriching their communities through social entrepreneurship. At-risk kids in Puerto Rico have an artistic outlet to heal their emotional traumas. Rotary and its partners have reduced 99.9% of polio cases worldwide. Thanks to you, the Rotary Foundation raised $408 million last year. So together, we can keep doing good in the world. Donors who take action help create lasting change. Our work isn't possible without you.
Good evening, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with you this afternoon or this early evening. And to talk about our Rotary Foundation. I think that video encapsulates the impact that our Rotary Foundation has through our programs so succinctly. So I'm glad that I had the opportunity to show that. But tonight's theme is something quite different, or perhaps on the other side of the coin. It's really about talking about how we sustain our Rotary Foundation's programs through the donations. In particular, through the donations of major gifts, which we'll get into in a little bit. But I'd like to first start by just recognizing how special our foundation is, as we not only engage Rotarians to plan and execute our projects, but we also fund our own work of the Rotary Foundation, primarily through the gifts of generous Rotarians and Rotary clubs around the world. So next slide, please. So on today's I'd just like to speak to you a little bit, give you a brief summary about our grant activity last year, then move on to our contribution results from 2020-21. Then we really want to spend some time on the different types of opportunities there are to support the Rotary Foundation with major gifts, explain our philosophy a little bit on how we raise that money, and then finish off with some ideas on how you might be able to help in your role to secure some major gifts for the Rotary Foundation. Next, please. So last year was really a record-setting year of activity for our Rotary Foundation. You will see here the disbursement of our major grants, but we dispersed over $300 million worth of grants, be that for our #1 human initiative or health initiative of Polio Plus, our global grants, our district grants, disaster response grants last year, which were heavily focused on COVID support, and of course of our very own Rotary Peace Scholarships. But all in all, it was a record-setting year of engagement and of activity, and hopefully change, global change for the beneficiaries. Next, please. Now, the Rotary Foundation, as I mentioned, we are a very unique charity as we look to inwards and to ourselves and to our own members to raise money that supports our own charity. Now that happens in many different ways. You have the clubs and the individual Rotarians at the district level doing their own fundraisers for their own projects. You have regional leaders, such as the ones that are on the call tonight, who are looking to help reach the Rotary Foundation's goals. You have our board members all around the world. And in conjunction with that, you have professional staff like myself who are also helping us to help achieve our fundraising goals of each year. So it really is a complex puzzle. And when it works well, we're able to achieve record-setting results, such as last year when we raised over $400 million. But that's really a testament to all of these different moving parts working well together and working towards that goal of increasing our funding so that we can have greater humanitarian impact. Next, please. On top of that, the Rotary Foundation has a number of different opportunities to support. And I'm sure most of you on this webinar tonight are familiar with many of the different funds that we have. We have our annual fund, which is really the life blood of the Rotary Foundation. But we also have our endowment fund, which seeks to provide a permanent funding stream to support projects around the world. And I won't go into all of these, as I'm sure they're familiar with you, but it just shows the complexity of being a fundraiser for the Rotary Foundation, is that we have all these different menus of opportunities for our constituents to support, and hopefully they align with something that they are passionate about. Next, please. Now here you see the contribution trends to the Rotary Foundation over these past 10 years. And I think in particular, you'll note that we have been increasing our contributions. That goes kind of in line with our activities. In particular, I'd like for you to take note that that dark blue line at the bottom of the screen there, those are our contributions to the annual fund. And unfortunately, within all of our contributions, this has been that's been the most steady or stagnant, which has really hovered around that 115 to 130 million. Whereas contributions to the endowment fund and other, which is really cash support for global grants, has really mushroomed and expanded over that same period. Next, please. So who is it who gives to the Rotary Foundation? And as I mentioned, it is primarily Rotarians and our own Rotary clubs, or perhaps encapsulated in Rotary organizations on this slide. And you'll see here that some 95% of our funding comes from Rotary, and only about 5% comes from external sources. And this is excluding the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But the general income for the Rotary Foundation mostly comes from our own members and our own Rotary clubs. And I think that's important to realize and to think about when we go out there and look for potential donors and major gift prospects. Next, please. So within that here, you also see the same information, but separately, where you see the amount of money contributed to the Rotary Foundation over these past 4 years. And once again, we see that individual donors, and there are roughly about 500,000 individual donors every year to the Rotary Foundation, they are really responsible for the bulk of the contributions that we receive. In fact, more than 3 to 1. So once again, when we're thinking about soliciting gifts and who we might look towards, I would really encourage the group to think about individuals. How do we solicit, approach individuals, and maybe making them the key focus of our fundraising campaigns. Next, please. So there we have a little bit of background about the Rotary Foundation, the impact or the amount of money that we invest in our programs to have it make impacts in communities around the world, and a little bit of background of our donors. But now I want to kind of segue into the meat of the presentation when we're talking about major gifts. And for the purposes here, different charities have different standards or set different objectives or definitions to what a major gift is. But for Rotary and the Rotary Foundation's purposes, a major gift is a contribution of $10,000 or more. And that may come in a variety of forms, and we're going to talk about that a little later in this presentation. So next, please. Traditionally, charities see about 80% of their funds coming from major gifts, and the other 20% of their funding stream coming from smaller gifts. And that's the traditional philanthropic model. And I think there it just highlights how important major gifts are to the income of a charity and the opportunities they have to fulfill their charitable visions. Now, if we move to the next slide, we will see that the Rotary Foundation has its slight difference in our donor segments. We really have three key segments here. The first, let's say the light blue, is our major gifts from last year. Those are gifts of $10,000 or more. The gray is our Paul Harris Society kind of level gifts. 1,000, it should be 9,000, but that $1,000 to $9,000 gifts. And that last dark blue pie is our small gifts. These are gifts, annual gifts of below $1,000. And if we see here, we take our major gifts and our mid-level gifts, they really account for some 70% of all income to the Rotary Foundation. Now, the interesting thing here is actually the number of donors that these segments take up. So with the major gifts, it's less than 0.4% of our global individual donors that make up that major gift total. So less than 0.5% of our donors contribute almost 40% of the income to the Rotary Foundation annually. And then we'll see at that mid-level, that's roughly about 10% of our donor total. It gives at that $65 million, or that 35%, roughly a third of it. And then the rest of it, the rest of that segment that has given less than a third, just more than a quarter of the contributions to the Rotary Foundation, that makes up about 90% of the total of our individual donors. So here, once again, we have a very small subset of donors that really account for the majority of the gifts that the Rotary Foundation receives, and then are responsible for the possibilities of Rotarians worldwide to engage in the programs of the Rotary Foundation. Next, please. Simply put, over a 10-year period, you see the increase here in this slide, both on the number of individual gifts that have been received by the Rotary Foundation, which are those dark blue bars. Back about 10 years ago, we received about 800 individual gifts of $10,000 or more. And now if we move forward to last year, you can see that goes up to about over 1,800 individual gifts. Likewise, the corresponding value of those gifts that we see in that orange bar, orange line coming across your screens, you see that we started off the decade with approximately about 35 million or closing in on $40 million US for those 800 gifts. And then now we've reached somewhere between 65 to 80 million, depending on the year. So once again, the impact of our major gifts is significant because it really allows and enables the Rotary Foundation to have that record-setting year of the number of global grants that we can approve for Rotarians to do good in their communities. Next, please. Just along with that, many people on this call may be familiar with our goal of raising $2.025 billion for our endowment fund by 2025. And here you see the most recent mile markers of where we're at. But the real impact here is not necessarily how much we've raised, but on the right of your screen, you see what that does. At the beginning of the decade, the Rotary Foundation received about $6 million of additional funding that went towards our programs from our endowment fund. If we move forward to this Rotary year, or last Rotary year, excuse me, that amount quadrupled, and we received over $20 million that went to support the different programs of the Rotary Foundation. And once again, just highlighting the importance that our fundraising has. The better we are at soliciting money for the Rotary Foundation, the more money we'll have available for our programs, and the more money there will be for the Rotary for our Rotarians to utilize in their communities. Next, please. So moving on now a little bit, because I think this is the important part when we're talking about gifts, and certainly some of the what I take out of my experience as a professional fundraiser. The idea of perhaps giving $10,000 or pounds to a charity might seem like something in the realm of what's possible for the very few. But in my experience, it has really been the majority of these gifts come from very ordinary people who actually do extraordinary things. There are a whole bunch of different opportunities for our donors to support our Rotary Foundation. And within each of those opportunities, there are perhaps some different possibilities. But I mean, the first and foremost, the easiest way to contribute to the Rotary Foundation is just cash. At any point, a donor can make a contribution to RFUK in this case, and that money will be able to be used right away by the Rotary Foundation. That is equally true if you leave that in your estate plans. But you're also able to donate appreciated stock. You're able to donate tangible properties such as artwork or jewelry. And we also have donors who donate their homes to the Rotary Foundation as a way of making a gift. So there are many different avenues of doing this. Each one may require a certain step or guidance, but I just wanted to say that these are different opportunities that donors take advantage of in order to make a major gift. Next, please. So one of the common ways that our donors perhaps make a major gift of $10,000 or pounds is utilizing a gift vehicle that we call a pledge. And a pledge is basically a promise to donate a certain amount of money over a certain amount of time. So the minimum is 10,000 over 3 years. So which averages to about 3,000 pounds or so a year. And that might make that major gift a little bit more palpable to some people who wanted to spread it out. It could be because of their cash flow reasons, or it could be because of charitable tax reasons. But that is one avenue that we've seen a lot of donors take advantage of, is to do this pledge, to promise to make a major gift. They pay it off in installments. And the really nice part about this gift vehicle is that the donors are recognized as major donors immediately after they make that first installment. So it's an opportunity to celebrate, to perhaps recognize them at a district level, and use them as a motivation for others to donate and to give as well. Next, please. That being said, we also have an opportunity called directed gifts, and this is really focused on both Rotarians, individuals, but also we've had some success with corporates here. And these are one-time cash gifts of $15,000 or $30,000. They go to support an area of focus. They carry the donor's name. And it helps that the donor doesn't necessarily have to be involved with the project. We have on one spectrum, clubs and Rotarians who are very engaged in developing projects in areas that they're passionate about, and then go ahead and fund those projects. But in this circumstance, it's really suited to donors who are passionate about the cause of the Rotary Foundation. Perhaps it's an area of focus. They are not involved in the project, and they just really want to be able to financially support something that is near and dear to them, but perhaps without having the expertise or the network to identify a project. And the Rotary Foundation does that for them, and then they get the recognition of being involved as a primary funder for one of our global grant projects. Next, please. In addition to that, I mentioned the 4 different types of gifts. All of those are also available to give as a testamentary gift, which is essentially leaving something from your estate in your will to the Rotary Foundation. I think most people on this call are very familiar with that idea. The fundraising data shows that 2 out of 3 households in the UK have prepared a will and have left something within their estate to one or more of their favorite charities. Within the Rotary Foundation and RFUK, this is very, very simple. There's a very easy to use form available on the RIBI website, and you kind of fill that out. And I would say that the larger your contribution, the more opportunities for choice that you have. And I would really encourage you to speak perhaps with one of the endowed and major gift advisors on this call, or myself, should you be wanting to leave a gift, because then we'd be able to kind of talk you through some different ways that you might be able to structure your estate so that you really get to fulfill your philanthropic vision through the Rotary Foundation. Next, please. Similarly, going with that, there is this idea of a named endowed fund. This is, you're able to carve out your own named fund within our endowment fund that carries your name, and therefore the good works that your fund funds is shared with you, and also should it be a testamentary gift, it can be shared with your next of kin or close family, and it really shows and leaves a legacy of your philanthropy for those who come after you. It's a very popular idea that's catching on. It can be used for a variety of different foundation programs, be it share, that kind of goes, the money goes back to your district, an area of focus, or the Rotary Peace Centers. The donor receives a gift agreement that specifically spells out how their money is going to be used. And as it says there is a report generated every year that shows the impact of that fund. And to some donors, that is very appealing because they get to see the impact of their donations, and they also get to share that perhaps their family as they have moved on. Next, please. All of these, coming back to that, our donors and are mostly individuals, and these individuals are predominantly made up of our own Rotarians. It is really important that we say thank you and we recognize every single person, every one of the 500,000 people who have made a contribution to the Rotary Foundation last year, and those that continue to do so this year. We are very special and unique that we do self-fund our projects, and we do want to make sure that we appreciate those who enable us to do these projects. There are lots of different types of recognition, ranging from your Paul Harris Fellow, recognizing a donor who's made $1,000 contribution, to our major donors, to our Bequest Society members, our benefactors. But I think it's just important that if you take away anything from this slide, that you really think about ways that we incorporate thanking our donors, making them feel special, because they really enable us to do good in the world. Next, please. So with that, we're coming here to an end of the presentation, and I was wondering, I wanted to put to the group just a few different ways that you can help. And certainly the first one and the most obvious one is, consider making a gift. Do you have an estate plan already made out? If not, I would encourage everyone to have an estate plan, regardless of what or whom you're looking to leave your valuables to. But it's really, I think, a best practice for all of us to make sure that we have that in place. But that might be an opportunity for you to think about which charities you might want to support with part of your estate. and hopefully the Rotary Foundation would be within your consideration as well. There has been a lot shared in this seminar here today. Hopefully you've gained something from it. And I think, I really encourage you to share this information. It's not necessarily common knowledge with everybody. Not everybody knows that you can leave something to the Rotary Foundation in their will, or that you can make a major gift with a 3-year pledge. And hopefully that's something that you'll be able to take back to your constituents, your clubs, your district, and you can pass on that knowledge. And finally, if you do come across somebody that's interested in making a gift and having part of their wealth have an impact in a charitable cause, connect them with regional volunteers who know the different options and opportunities that there are available for these donors. Connect them with our IBI office or myself, so that we can really inform them about all of the different opportunities that there are to support our Rotary Foundation. And with that, I just want to say thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate all of the work that everybody does here to move our Rotary Foundation forward. As you've seen, it's a tremendously exciting time. Rotarians are engaged. We are doing more good work than ever. That would not be possible without the generous contributions of those who give. So to you, a tremendous thank you. And I am here and available at any time to help answer people's questions about the Rotary Foundation and different opportunities to support us. And I'm sure that my email and my contact information can be shared to everybody in the group as well. So once again, thank you for your time and attention.
Well, thank you very much for that excellent presentation, Espen. We did ask people who are participating today if they would like to put any questions to you in advance. And we did get a number that came through, but I think the eagle-eyed amongst them may have actually seen the answers in your presentation. So there may be a little bit of repetition here. But the first question we had was, I normally give to the Rotary Foundation via my club. Am I allowed to make personal donations? That's a
Great question to start off with, I think, Ian, because it kind of puts us at the entry level of the Rotary Foundation and supporting it. And this really depends on, or not the answer, but how people donate to the Rotary Foundation really depends on kind of regional and cultural preferences. So in some parts of the world, it's quite common where everybody who joins Rotary is kind of shown how to make an individual donation and the benefits of that, because people are happy to do that and have that independent choice. And in other cultures and regions, it kind of goes through the Rotary Club. The club collects the money and submits that money to the Rotary Foundation as a club gift. Every single Rotarian and non-Rotarian has the opportunity and is allowed to make an individual gift to the Rotary Foundation. So even if you make some contributions through your club, there's nothing to say that you cannot make an additional contribution in your name. And that would be, you can either do it online. Perhaps you might correct me how we do it in RIBI, because I do know we have RFUK there. So that's an important aspect as well of making an individual contribution so that you are eligible to receive the tax benefits that are allowed within the UK.
Yeah, I'd certainly recommend doing it via RFUK to get those tax benefits. So if you're a taxpayer, it certainly does help the Rotary Foundation as well. But thanks for that one. The next question, and I think this could be asked by anybody about anything in Rotary. There seem to be many acronyms used in Rotary, one of which is EMGA. Can you explain what that is, please?
Of course. And the questionnaire is absolutely right. We love our acronyms, don't we? So EMGA is short for Endowed and Major Gift Advisor. And these are volunteers that have been asked by the trustees of the Rotary Foundation to serve as regional major gift fundraising leads. There are about 42 of these individuals around the world, and more or less each one of them works with about a zone or a country or region, a language region. That, as you well know, as you are one, Ian, and as Mike Hodge is currently one of them, they are generally asked to serve a 3-year term and are trained by the Rotary Foundation and then work both with the Rotary Foundation and the professional staff to help secure and promote major gifts within that region.
I think that's a very long explanation of what 4 letters actually means, but very welcome to get that out there to people. The third question we have is from someone who said they'd like to leave a bequest to the Rotary Foundation. Who would be the best person to speak to this and why?
That is our endowed and major gift advisors to begin with. So if it's somebody here in the UK, I would encourage them to connect with yourself or with Mike, depending on where they are located in the UK. So because you guys know the charitable laws in the UK, as well as the different gift opportunities that the Rotary Foundation has. Of course, myself, I'm always happy to help and be of assistance as well. But I think it's really important, as I mentioned earlier, if you are thinking about making that step and leaving a bequest, I think it'd be really advisable to have a chat with somebody who's knowledgeable within Rotary so that we can give you the different options and understand what you're interested in before you go and see your solicitor or accountant, etc. Because you want to make sure that if it is something that you want to do, that you have an understanding of what the options are and how you might phrase that in your will.
All right, thanks very much, Espen. The fourth question we have, my club is wanting to do a global grant, but we're having difficulty raising funds. As it is a project that I'm passionate about, can I make a personal contribution, and will this be credited towards my overall foundation recognition?
Yeah. Excuse me. That writer really, I think touches on some of the challenges sometimes about global grants and fundraising for them, as well as really as I tried to relay in the presentation, the immense generosity of Rotarians. And there are many people like that person who end up, who are involved in a global grant, they're passionate about it, and they choose to make a contribution, a significant contribution, be it £5,000, £10,000, whatever they feel comfortable and have the opportunity to do to help that project. So it is possible for individuals to support global grants. And if those contributions are sent to the Rotary Foundation or RFUK, then the donor will get credit for that towards their individual giving. If they send the money directly to the project account of the global grant, then that does not count as a contribution to the Rotary Foundation.
That's actually, I don't know who that question came from, but that's a very good one, because one of the donors that I've dealt with in my term was actually in that situation. They had supported grants, but they just put the money directly into the account without looking to get the recognition. It still went to help, but they didn't get the recognition. The final question that I've got is, was very nicely phrased. I recently attended the Peace Symposium at Bradford University, and I was blown away by the fantastic work these people are doing. Is there any way that I could give direct support?
Yeah, the Rotary Centers are the premier educational program for the Rotary Foundation. And we are now celebrating our 20-year anniversary of this really impactful program. And I'm glad that the person had an opportunity to visit the seminar. There are many opportunities to support the Rotary Peace Centers, be it with small individual gifts to large significant bequests. And I think it'd be if we can follow up with that individual to understand a little bit more about their motivation and the size of their gift, I'm sure we could identify the right opportunity for them to support that very special program.
Right. Well, that's something that either Mike or myself will have to get started on. So thank you very much for that, Espen. That comes to the end of the questions which were submitted. So I'm now going to hand over to John Danel, who's been looking at the questions that have been sent in during the talk.
Yes, thank you, Espen, for all those, and thank you, Ian, for putting those questions that we had beforehand. I've had a few questions come through on the chat. The first one is from Eve Conway, and she's posing the perennial question that many Rotary clubs collect for other charities rather than our own foundation, and even put on their publicity materials that they are collecting for, quote, Rotary charities, when there is only one Rotary charity, our own one, the Rotary Foundation. How can we get more education of grassroots Rotarians about our one and only Rotary charity, the Rotary Foundation? I'd love to know the answer to that, please.
How long do we have, John? Thanks, Eve, for that question. And I think the first and obvious thing that comes out of that, it is, one, it's not only in the UK where this happens. Two, when we give trainings at district or regional levels to our governors-elect, etc., about the Rotary Foundation and fundraising, it's perhaps not super well received because people sometimes are a little apprehensive about speaking about money and about asking people for money. So it's one of those cultural things. But it turns out, if you look at the outside world, the Rotary or Rotarians and Rotary were tremendous fundraisers for other charities. We consistently have people come to our clubs and give a presentation about some good works that they do. And the Rotarians in the club write a check to that charity. We have different fundraisers, golf events, runs, you name it, all in support of other things. So my positive takeaway from that is we are really good at fundraising. And now how can we match that with utilizing some of that energy, effort, and innovation and bring it towards our Rotary Foundation? And perhaps not exclusively, but I think the Rotary Foundation should be part of every club's and every Rotarian's menu of giving. And we should consider to give something that we raise to our very own charity. And as I mentioned, a charity that is solely focused on our own communities and doing good in the world. So where does that start? Well, I think, Eve, to begin with, we need to get better about telling the Rotary Foundation story, about talking about our impact and engaging our Rotarians about that. As I mentioned, we probably host 5, 10, 15 other charities a year at our clubs on the program as speakers. But I would perhaps challenge everybody on this call, how much time do we spend on talking about our Rotary Foundation in our club on average? And I suspect it's probably not very much. Perhaps during the Rotary Foundation month, the club chair might be asked to give a presentation, and that is it. So that, I think it really starts with that, is informing our constituency about what we do, the impact that we're having, and the different possibilities there are for both the club and individuals to participate and get engaged in the Rotary Foundation.
Thank you, Espen. People who've heard me talking about the Rotary Foundation recently will realise I agree very much with your point there. I sum it up in the phrase, tell the stories. I'm going to interject before I move on to the next question also. I've had a comment back from DGN Amal in District 1060, and he's got an interesting point which we have discussed in our various meetings with the DGEs, ends and so on. Tell Rotarians to look at the accounts of any charity they want to support and figure out what percentage of the money donated actually goes into charity work. Perhaps you could comment on what a strong part of Rotary Foundation that is.
Yeah, and I think that really ties back to that. The Rotary Foundation and Rotary International are a member-led organization, and as I tried to show in my presentation, almost all of the funding that we receive are from our own members, be it clubs or individuals. And therefore, the trustees of the Rotary Foundation are very acutely aware of that, realizing that they're spending their own members' money and therefore take the stewardship of that money very, very seriously. And I think that's one of the strengths of our foundation. We can talk about the different charitable awards that we've won for being tremendously good and transparent with our finances and stewarding our money. But I think one of the benchmarks in the US at least, which is the biggest charitable market in the world and where we are headquartered and registered, so I think that's where we kind of measure ourselves, is that generally in the nonprofit sector, if you take 65% of your funds allocated to programs, funds raised are allocated to programs, you're doing pretty well, and the rest is to expenses. So that's the kind of minimum benchmark. The Rotary Foundation annually is at about 90% of our funds raised go to our programs, and only a very little goes to administration and fundraising. So I think that is one of the clearest ways to show that when you give money to the Rotary Foundation, a very, very high percentage of that goes to the beneficiaries and is not wasted on miscellaneous expenses, shall we say.
Thank you. Moving on to a point that Janine Duckworth's raised, which relates back to your "Who are our donors" slide. And she comments that we need more resources to help us raise money for our Rotary Foundation from outside of Rotary. What is planned for that, as it would be a great way of highlighting what Rotary Service projects are and how grants from TRF can increase their impact?
If I understand the question, in
what
terms
are we planning in terms of, or what can we do about getting more money in from the outside world rather than just our own donors?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of resources, there are a few things there that Rotary is starting to produce. I would say, less internal fundraising materials and some things that are specifically and exclusively targeted towards an external audience. So that helps because, as was mentioned by Ian, we have a lot of acronyms. We speak our own language internally within Rotary that may not be understood or relevant to an external audience. So there's some of that going on. I think the other part of it is Rotarians are engaged business and civic leaders, and it's really taking that opportunity to speak to your peers about the Rotary Foundation. And we kind of get back to your initial question about how are good fundraisers for other charities. We're also probably not very good at tooting our own horn to our peers and telling our friends and community leaders and business leaders about the good works of the Rotary Foundation. So I think it comes back to us being better at telling our story and being unashamed of approaching people and asking them to partner and to support us.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. There are a few points just about, well, the first one here is about clarifying a point in one of your slides where you showed the split between Rotary organisations, individuals, and category was.
Yeah, it's organizations, individuals. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Rotary clubs.
Jim Ellis Jones has just asked that is it right that the category Rotary organisations includes donations from clubs?
Yeah, Rotary organizations, clubs, Rotaract clubs, etc. We also have, from time to time, we receive donations from Rotary entities like Rotary action groups and things like that, and we put that all together as a Rotary organization.
Yeah, I think that's just clarification. So
yeah,
that's from Jim. Now McCreed has asked a couple of questions of a little bit of detail. She noted from one of your slides the pictures of the major donor pins, recognition pins, and she's asking why are some recognition pins circular and some square. Perhaps you could just illustrate or outline
Yeah,
the
excellent.
differences between the various
Yeah,
pins you have.
and we love our pins in Rotary, and it is a very traditional way for us to recognize our donors with those circular and square pins. Those are really recognition items for major gifts or people who've attained a certain cumulative donation level. The ones that are square are for major donors. That goes from level 1 at $10,000 all the way up to level 4. And each one has 1 diamond or more, depending on your total giving. And that's actually money that the Rotary Foundation has received. So if you're giving £1,000 every year, after 10 years, it's 10,000 pounds and you're a major donor, etc. The ones that are circular, they look very similar, but they're circular. Those are pins that are given to people who've made a testamentary gift or a bequest. So they're bequest society members and they're bequest society pins. And they have the corresponding amount of different levels as well.
Thank you. And of course, the Paul Harris Fellowship pins, which are a recognition for a $1,000 donation,
Exactly,
are also circular, aren't they?
exactly.
If I may, I'll also say, and it's perhaps fairer if I do it than asking you to, we do in the UK or in Great Britain and Ireland have the sustaining member activity. Well, that happens across the world, but we do specifically have pins as well for sustaining members. And just to break the mold, they're rectangular. But they're going back to the point you made about thanking and recognising Rotarians for donations at frankly, whatever level. So that's that point. The last one I've had in this, I'm just checking the list. I don't know more questions come in while I haven't been watching. Vijay Patel's just asked, is gift aid claimed by Rotary Foundation UK credited to a Rotarian? Again, would you, given that this is a very UK very UK specific thing, would you rather I just?
I think I'll defer that to you or somebody else on the call who has the expertise on the tiny parts here. So I don't want to misspeak.
I can categorically say that if money is given by a personal donation to RFUK, so it has, even if it's given through your club, as long as the club tells RFUK who's given the money, and that gift aid is then claimed by RFUK, they will credit it to the individual in question, and they'll get the relevant recognition points as well. So I think that's about all the questions. I've had one comment from, I suppose it is a question from Najib Yusuf from Stockport. He's asking, is it fair to say that more individual donors are from the USA than from other countries?
I don't have a breakdown on the top of my head in terms of where those approximately 500,000 donors come from, but I will speak to this. About 10 years ago, roughly 65% of total contributions to the Rotary Foundation, this is excluding the Gates match, but individual and club contributions to the Rotary Foundation came from North America. So that was the USA and Canada. Now, if we move forward to last Rotary year, that has actually flipped, and over 65% of the contributions to the Rotary Foundation are now outside of North America. So we really see a shift in terms of global philanthropy and global Rotarians globally supporting the Rotary Foundation at much greater numbers than what they did 10 years ago. And that's really, I'm really enthused to see that. We, of course, have more Rotarians outside North America than inside North America, so maybe it's not surprising. But the second biggest donor country to the Rotary Foundation is Korea, followed by India, and then Japan. And very passionate and dedicated Rotarians. But that the same is true for here in Switzerland, in the UK, in parts of Africa. So we're really seeing global support for the charitable activities of the Rotary Foundation.
Well, thank you, Espen. That's all been extremely illuminated, very well put across, and I'm sure people have got a lot out of this. Thank you for doing all of that. I'll end with a little bit of good news that Mike Osborne has put up on the chat, which is that the incoming DG for District 1200, sort of towards the southwest of England, Bristol area, he, quote, has made the Rotary Foundation his charity of the year, which gives a great platform for club awareness. So that is a great bit of good news on there. So thank you, Espen, and that really has been very helpful. One other question, which is really just an administrative one: will this recording be circulated to us by email or whatever? That's a very useful tool to educate Rotary members on the importance of foundations. So there's someone seeking your knowledge to spread more widely, and I can just tell people that it will be put onto the recording. We'll put onto the Rotary GB&I YouTube channel fairly early next week, as soon as our support guy Phil Dyer, who does a wonderful job, has time to just tidy it up and add it in there. So yes, it definitely will be available, and the link to the recordings will be circulated quite shortly. So thank you, Espen. We'll let you get on with your evening. We realise it's later for you than it is for us in Switzerland there. And thank you, and we wish you a good evening. I'd like now just to move on to Cheryl Berry and let her introduce the future of our InFocus talks.
Yes, thank you very much, John. I would actually like to add my thanks to Espen, because our Rotary humanitarian service around the world would not have its impact without the tremendous resourcing of the Rotary Foundation. And I certainly hope all of us this evening, with the insights and the information that we've had, will double our efforts, as it were, to bring in the foundation funding. So looking ahead then, we're so grateful that you all follow us, really. A number of you have been to all our talks. Our next session is on Thursday, June the 9th, and our area of focus is disease prevention and treatment. We're truly delighted that our speaker is Dr. Shobna Shah. Her talk is actually titled Teamwork and Success. Dr. Shobna has become a Rotarian through the Hub, and she actually is very experienced in a number of areas: anaesthesia, critical care, aviation medicine, and she works with the NHS and with Her Majesty's Armed Forces. Dr. Shobna Shah is also the co-chair for the British Medical Association BME London Network. Because of her multilingual skills, she actually operates on a number of platforms and is a medical advisor and a global transportation coordinator for medicines and for medical devices around the world. This is crucial at this present time with our Ukraine resources. And Dr. Shobna links with Dr. John Phillips of our Rotary International Fellowship of Healthcare Professionals. We truly are so pleased that she's able to join us on June the 9th to talk with us all about teamwork and success in this area of disease prevention and treatment. We do hope you'll join us again, and please invite others along, not just Rotarians, but others in your community who you think would enjoy hearing the things that we've been able to share with you over the last few InFocus sessions. So thank you very much indeed. Look forward to welcoming you again.